This crowd rises to its feet. Vaccaro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect. Garland went to the lane, lobbed to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
The Chase Down is presented by Fubo TV. Watch over 100 channels of live sports and TV for half the cost of cable. There's no contract and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com. The Cleveland Cavaliers have figured out their playoff rotation. The starters only gave them a 4-point win in Orlando. The backups gave them a 24-point win. I think we figured out all we need to know about this team going into our first round series against the New York Knicks. And joining me today to discuss it is my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
I was doing better before I clipped your mic right at the beginning of the podcast, but we got there. I got there before the Fubo read started, so I feel a little bit better.
Okay.
But
I was coming in hot.
Yeah, I think I was just feeling myself, after a wildly fun game that had no business being fun or interesting. It was really cool. It was really cool to see. I don't know, where do you want to start? We can just jump right in.
Yeah, I want to start with this game. And honestly, it was really fun to watch a game that really had no stakes. The Cavs clinched the 4 seed with their initial win over the Orlando Magic, a plucky Orlando Magic team that, like we said going in, had been really good for a while now. Over 50 games of playing winning basketball. We have seen earlier this season where they've swept their season series against Boston. They had one of these kind of home and home games or 2-game series in Orlando where they swept Boston. So we knew that they could be dangerous. And the Cavs got another clutch win on the road against Orlando, put it together in the fourth quarter. And then with everything kind of locked up, we did the Cavs did what you suggested, which was resting these guys. And it's kind of nice to have a game completely devoid of anxiety. Like, there was no stress. I was able to just kind of sit back, relax, enjoy some basketball, see who does some cool stuff. It was honestly like mentally preparing me, Carter, for the Winnipeg Sea Bears season, because I'm sure I'm not going to be losing hair and going gray over those games early on.
I hope to see you, fully invest. I know I'm going to be. If there's a CUBL League Pass that I can sign up for, I'm going to, Justin. We're going to do Sea Bear Sundays during the off season for everyone who I know is waiting with bated breath for that season to get started. It was really fun because, yes, the stakes were low, but like we saw things we wanted to see, I've been begging to see Isaiah Mobley against NBA players all year. I've been really anxious to see Danny Green get extended minutes and see what that looked like. And obviously the Magic were not playing their starters either. They were not bringing their A game. So, I'll call them NBA-ish players that we got to see these guys against. But, more than anything, we just got to see a different sort of Cavs basketball. It's so funny. We've been asking for more shooting, and turns out we have shooting at home. Sam Merrill, Danny Green, Jetty Osman, Isaiah Mobley, everyone was hitting in this game, and it was really fun to see. And man, Justin, just watching that game, I just keep thinking, like, if the team adds 2 NBA rotation level stud shooters, it's over, bro. It's over. Like, no one's gonna stop this team. They will go from the second best team in the league by net rating to something I think even greater. And it's so exciting to see. Like, as I've talked about this a little bit, but as much as people hand wring about, hey, the cupboard is kind of barren. They've used a ton of assets to go get Donovan Mitchell. So how do they finish the roster? They don't need much. They just need, if they could find a facsimile of what Danny Green gave them in their rotation next year, and could even be from Danny Green as he's further and further out from his ACL tear. It just feels like this game also showed me what this team is missing right now, and how special they'll be once they get it.
Yeah, and we wanted the Cavs to learn some lessons from when they played Golden State shorthanded. And I think some of that is, don't play down to your competition. And I think they got better overall, still had some of those games where I felt like they were playing down to their competition. But one of the lessons they apparently learned is, if you are sitting your starters, bomb away threes, because that is the great equalizer, right? Like if you get up the volume threes and you start converting those, you can catch teams on certain nights. And obviously, as you mentioned, Orlando was resting guys too in this game. I do feel the slight urge, Carter, to be just a little bit petty, because in some spaces we took a lot of heat for our opinions about Evan Mobley going into the draft, that we were being homers or shills for just being so locked in on Evan Mobley over Jalen Suggs, who, played high school quarterback and he banked in a 3 in the tournament and all this other stuff, all this leadership. I still am actually a Jalen Suggs believer, not necessarily to be an all-star, but I think, a quality kind of off guard that can help out. But it seemed Orlando was pretty confident playing him in this game. He wasn't among those they felt, we need to rest this guy because otherwise we may be at risk of winning.
Yeah, it was, I mean, he played okay. He had a couple threes early on, finished with, 22,
awesome
5 and 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you don't, if you're a top 5 pick, you don't want to get into a duel with Raul Neto in the second half of game 81. Yeah, I think, Justin, I think could pretty confidently say we were right, that Evan Mobley was indeed the pick. And Suggs, by the way, didn't even go 4, so I don't know. I don't even know what people were thinking.
Well, Jalen Suggs did outscore Evan Mobley in this game, so you do have to take that into consideration. I honestly, I think as soon as he kind of extends his range out to the 3-point line more consistently, I think the game's going to come together for him. But you can just tell, like Evan Mobley, I saw Rob Mahoney had him number 2 for Defensive Player of the Year, the Ringer. He's actually behind Draymond Green, which I thought was a really
Mahoney thinks the game in his own way, like, and that's not a criticism.
It might have been Michael Pina. Pina. Now I feel bad. The Ringer had it.
I had a whole take about Mahoney, and you completely blew it up. Congratulations.
I'm sorry, I lost confidence as I was talking, but that wasn't something I was even expecting. But yeah, Evan Mobley, obviously a transformational player, and the Cavs, man, like over 50 wins. That is a significant accomplishment. 51 now with this win over Orlando, and it is a lot of fun. And I think you're right to kind of highlight just how little the Cavs really do need kind of from that supporting shooting. And I think we have hopes that, as Dean Wade continues to get a little bit healthier, that he can get closer to the player that he was prior to this shoulder injury. And Danny Green, man, like, obviously, I think he's one of the biggest stories of this game. That guy can still very clearly shoot. It is tough watching him just a little bit because you can tell that the feet are still a little heavy. Like when he got that steal and was going in transition, I did not have a lot of confidence that was going to get converted because it just seemed like he was going to get chased down, which isn't abnormal, right? Like I think we've seen it with Ricky, and we've seen it with most players coming off these ACL injuries, that it's usually the second year where these guys start to really start moving like themselves. But I mean, that shooting form is still so pure, and when he's set, he's going to knock it down the majority of the time.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing that kind of went through my head, because I don't know where you are at this point with Green, but I remain kind of where I was, which is that he's gonna. I do still believe he's gonna get some postseason run. And I imagine it's going to be whenever because this team will likely lose this series. Hot take. I think he'll get run when things are starting to get a little hairy, or things are starting to slip away, and JB needs to try some other options. And like, what? So if you're coming into this with the belief that he is going to get some run at some point, depending on how the rest of the role players on the team play, it is hard. I mean, my question to you is like, how bad does the defense have to be if he's going to shoot this well to make it not worth it? I mean, because watching him play, it is so clear that he provides something that the rest of the team just doesn't do. And that even includes guys like Jetty Osman, who when he's hot, he is really, really hot, but just, the intelligence with how Green moves off ball. This is a game where the Cavs had no credible on-ball threats, at the point of attack. And he still was, just navigating space and cooking these kids and getting open threes. And I'm not saying like he should be in the rotation to start the postseason. Like I think other guys have earned that, and obviously, and he does have some limitations still. He isn't moving around awesome. There's just, obviously he is not moving around great, but like if he's going to shoot like this, the ends might justify the means.
Yeah, I agree, and there's a reason you and I have been such big fans of Danny Green throughout his career. He's such an intelligent player. I think even now, as he's struggling to stay in front of guys on the defensive end of the court, he still had 3 steals. He still had a block, right? Like
a transition defense block, Justin.
A vintage Danny Green throwback, right? And all the intelligence, all the instincts, all of that is still there with Danny Green, and I kind of do feel that it's going to be situational of who gets put in the playoffs, of who kind of gets looks depending on what you need in certain spots. And I definitely, like when you're looking at kind of Jetty Osman or Danny Green at times, I just think both of them bring something when it comes to the willingness to take those shots where both of them need to have looks, or you're either going one or the other in the postseason. And I think Jetty deserves the first crack. I think he's very clearly still moving a lot better than Danny Green is out there. But I definitely can see situations where you'd want to play Danny Green out there. And maybe you understand that, hey, the point of attack defense isn't going to be a real strength with him. So we're going to only have him out there with Mobley and Allen on the court, right? Like maybe you'd want to make sure that you have that backline defense, or even it's like some second unit minutes where it's Mobley with Dean Wade. You have Okoro out there as point of attack defender, Karis LeVert, and Danny Green as kind of the third perimeter player. Like maybe it's situations like that can work. And it's the unfortunate thing with him going into health and safety protocols, right? When JB said, hey, we want to kind of get him some run with the starters, right? To see how this can work. But the other side of that coin is he's such an intelligent player. He's about as plug and play as it gets when it comes to a role guy. And when you already have such a strong foundation for what this team does offensively, you really can kind of plug and play him as the fifth guy in these lineups that typically defenses have ignored to this point this season.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just thinking about how someone I have pined for and still pine for being honest, Justin, that ended up being the reason the Cavs got Danny Green in the first place, which is Luke Kennard, who the Grizzlies traded for, and then routed Green to Houston, and he ended up being bought out. If they had played Luke Kennard, they would have had to hide him on. If the Cavs had somehow gotten Luke Kennard, they would have had to hide him on whoever the worst perimeter player was on the floor in the postseason. Would he have been better defensively than this version of Danny Green? I'm not so sure. Now, I think he is a better offensive player than this version of Danny Green just because he is just such an electric shooter right now and just is frankly more spry. But, like, I don't know, man. I'm trying not to buy too much, but, like, I think the reason I don't think I'm overreacting to one game is every time I see him, even in that Philly game right before All-Star break when JB was like, screw it, we're getting run off the floor, I'm putting in Danny to see how it goes. Like, he just the shooting is just so apparent, and it's so clear that like they just don't have that class of shooter among their role players elsewhere, and it was just really fun to watch. And obviously, you got it. Even if it doesn't lead to anything in the postseason, I'm really happy that he got to get this tape out there. Like, hey, I can still shoot the absolute crap out of the ball. Man, like you just think I think you're spot on with what you said about. If you do just only play him when the Knicks are playing someone who you don't really have to worry about, that you can kind of hide on in the postseason. I know we're going to talk about the Knicks series, or
next week,
or you pair him with pair his minutes with Tower City. But man, just a really, really fun game from him. And like not on, he had a couple floaters that he's not going to hit against Quentin Grimes.
I think one of them was actually meant to be a lob.
Can't rule it out. But but the cool thing is the 3-point shooting all was very vintage Danny Green 3-point shooting. And like that's stuff that like looks right, feels right. So yeah, I don't know. I just adore Danny Green. He's on my Mount Rushmore of favorite role players ever. And it's cool that he's on the team, and it's cool that he's showing out in the spot and the opportunities he gets, which is all you can ask for.
Yeah, and honestly, I do think that this is a game that's also just another good reminder that when players that are in the NBA, if you're getting them enough touches, they're going to really start to show stuff, right? Like what really kind of separates kind of the guys that aren't stars that make it in the NBA and the guys that aren't stars that don't make it in the NBA. Often it's being able to translate what they're able to do when they're in rhythm and when they're comfortable into being role players, into those tight windows within the structure of a team. Whereas like when certain players, like you give them enough touches, they'll go out there and look great, right? Like we have countless examples of that throughout NBA history. And like these guys are pros for a reason, right? Like you go out there, you get comfortable. The Cavs have been on the wrong side of this a couple times this season. Pros are going to be able to beat you, and pros are going to be able to put up points. And I do think when it comes to Danny Green and some of the other guys here, like even Isaiah Mobley, like I was looking at how Isaiah was playing this season or in this game, and I was thinking he probably could have helped the Cavs at times this season, right? Like he probably could have stepped in and given you a little more punch than what Robin Lopez is able to give at times, or some of the times where we're playing Lamar, but it was probably most beneficial for him to get that time with the charge. We saw how raw he looked in the summer league in Vegas, and his ability to now kind of space the floor a little bit more. I think he's a lot more decisive, and he looks more confident on the court. And some of these moves that the Cavs are going to make aren't going to have immediate payoffs. And I think that's the case with Isaiah Mobley drafting him. I think he's probably going to be someone that can crack the rotation, or at least crack the regular lineup in the future. And maybe even Danny Green. Maybe that signing ends up being something that helps them more next year. Even Ricky Rubio might be something that helps them more next year, because that was the messaging on media day was, we signed Ricky, but we expect the on-court impact to be more year two, because that is the nature of these ACL injuries.
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about Isaiah and really dive in on his game, because, I mean, frankly, this is probably going to be the best tape we get on him all season. He scored more points in this game than he had scored in the entire season, got more run than he had gotten in the entire season. And I think it's going to be really interesting to evaluate, because when I've watched him play in the G League, which is, I'm not going to pretend I watched every game, but I watched a decent amount of tape. A lot of jump hooks, and kind of stuff where I'm like, is this gonna translate against NBA level bigs? And buddy, I think I was more impressed with anything with the quickness of the 3-point release and the fluidity of the 3-point release. In summer league with Mobley, it was so clear that he did not have 3-point range on the jumper yet. You could watch him go. You almost watched his lower body go, oh, I'm going to need a little bit more on this one on the way up on all of his attempts. And that's why he missed a lot of them pretty badly in summer league. And he was really rising up very confidently in this game. The mechanics looked really, really crisp. And I do think the 3-pointer is going to be the driver for him as to determine whether he is a rotational NBA big or a guy who's going to live on the fringes of the G League and the big league club. Man, what an impressive game. Like, still a steady diet of jump hooks and duck ins and stuff, which, great. I mean, if you have good touch, that's awesome. I remember in draft season, Sam Vecini compared him to Al Horford. As like, obviously he's not going to say he's going to have the career Al Horford's had, but like in terms of his way of like nothing really is jumping out at you, but it's all good and helpful. And I think that really was the case today. I'll let you talk a little bit about Mobley. I got more if you want, but man, I really loved watching him play today.
Yeah, I really enjoy kind of the style that he plays because he's such a throwback in certain ways, right? Like his footwork is impeccable. Like the way that he's able to shift his weight, he's always on balance. Kind of getting around Goga Batadze and some of the other defenders that Orlando had. Like we saw Goga was causing problems for the Cavs in that first game too, right? Like he's a guy with legitimate size and some legitimate defensive chops as well, and just the way that Mobley is able to kind of knife around guys and create space. And it's just so interesting to me because it's the old school aspects of kind of that back down post move, all really nice footwork, little hook shots, and the nice touch around the rim. But then he also has that really smart playmaking sense, right? Where he's reading the defense as he's doing that and making the right passes. And like you said, the improved 3-point shot, like this is the type of growth that we wanted to see. Like when we were talking about Summer League and we were discussing Isaiah Mobley, these were kind of the swing skill sets. So to see that kind of player development, I think is encouraging because whether or not he pans out, it's maximizing these swing skill sets and growing those to the best of your abilities and seeing whatever ceiling is there. The fact that it's developing along that right path is an encouraging sign. And we talked about the CBA on the last podcast, but the real kind of takeaway that you hear from everybody with the CBA is it's going to help you keep your players, but it's really going to become important that you emphasize player development, doing well in the draft, using the G League well in developing these two-way guys into success stories like a Dean Wade or Lamar Stevens or maybe even Isaiah Mobley now, right? Like that is going to be really, really important because once you start to get into those kind of higher payrolls, your ability to add guys through free agency or even in trades is going to become more complicated. So player development, even though we're at this point where we have this core in place and their development is going to matter so much, the development that you have on the margins is going to be incredibly important. And I think if Isaiah ends up being another one of these success stories, that's an encouraging sign moving forward.
Absolutely. I think at the least, I feel watching this game, certainly felt justified and kind of pushing back on anyone who was calling this a nepotism pick. You could see a world where Mobley is playing on the big league club next year and getting real minutes and being legitimately helpful. I did want to ask you about the other side of the ball, because I do think that also could be a pretty big driver for him. He looks a little smaller than, what he's listed at. He's not an explosive
height
athlete.
Watch, Carter. We're doing height watch again in April.
I know.
Yeah.
He's not an explosive athlete, yet very fast hands. Got 3 steals, and I thought really earned all 3 of them. Well, they weren't just throw them into his hand because he happened to be there. Type of steals, a couple blocks. Moved well and helped defense, but also has some limitations on that end. Like, what do you think about him on that side of the ball? Like, do you think you think he can get to a helpful functional defender, or do you think that's going to be something that hamstrings him?
Yeah, he obviously, like when you see him out there, he looks to be about the same height as Dean Wade, and Wade is someone that I could see potentially those two kind of working well together, right? Like I think Wade, when he has his shot, he's going to be able to kind of replicate some of the actions that he had with Diakite on the offensive end, but I do wonder if you need to have someone like Wade who can kind of rotate over and provide some rim protection as well. I think Mobley does a good job on that end. Like when I've watched film from the Charge and all that, like he is an impactful defender, but I think you're right to kind of question how much of that impact is going to translate when you're playing against NBA size and skill, right? It's going to be something interesting to monitor. I think he's going to be a good defender. I don't think he's necessarily going to be a great one, but I think the instincts are there. And for what you're looking for, like I think moving forward, the plan should still be Jared Allen or Evan Mobley is playing all the minutes at center in a normal game. But if you're talking about, that third or fourth big, I can see the defense being there at the level that you would need, knowing that you're probably playing him against a lot of second units too.
Yeah, I just feel like my journey with Mobley has been fun because it's been like, at first I was super high on him. Then Summer League happened, and while I loved some of the feel, I think he really understands basketball at a high level. I just watched him. I watched the jumper be really rough, and then I saw the limits of his athleticism of his body, and I went, maybe he's not that. And then I feel like he spent the entire G League season, buttering me back up, baby. And this is kind of a great way to cap it. Obviously he might play tomorrow as well, or I'm sorry, on Sunday as well. But yeah, I just feel like I've kind of been riding the Isaiah Mobley roller coaster a little bit in terms of him as a prospect. But I've definitely saw some really good things today. And it's fun kind of getting to evaluate these guys down roster, because if you remember during the LeBron era, the second LeBron era, every now and again we had a Jetty Osman to get excited about coming over, but like for the most part it was like, hey, you're not in your mid 30s and have competed in 6 NBA finals. We're not gonna have a lot of time for you, buddy. So it's kind of fun getting to toe the line. Like we talked about this, how the LeBron return was dope, but we skipped the rise part of it, where you're developing a team and developing a roster and trying to make these pieces. It just, it went from 0 to 60 so fast with LeBron. It's fun getting to have these little stretches where, even though we're getting ready for a playoff series, we can spend 10 minutes talking about Dean Wade and about Isaiah Mobley and Danny Green and Sam Merrill and Mamadi Diakite. And it's like, that's it. It's just fun. I think it really plays to the true basketball sickos we are.
Yeah, it is funny because we're talking about these guys, and a lot of them are older than the core too. That's the really wild thing. Like, I think Sam Merrill's the same age as Donovan Mitchell, and Isaiah Mobley, he's the older brother of Evan Mobley, right? And these young.
Real quick, I have an older brother take as a younger brother with an older brother.
I like this.
It is so.
You know what? I completely forgot that we have that dynamic where I'm the older brother and
absolutely
you're the younger brother.
Not. And aren't I older than you?
No, yeah, but I mean, in terms of mentality,
you're super annoying. Anyway, it is so funny whenever anyone asks Isaiah Mobley about Evan. They had the soundbite on the Bally broadcast about Evan's Defensive Player of the Year candidacy. And he's like, I'm really proud of him. He had a lot of nice things to say. And he's like, yeah, he's doing what he's supposed to do. It was still like, listen, bro, you're my little brother and you're this talented. Yeah, you better be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate.
Yeah.
It was classic, like just a little big brother negging while being otherwise very optimistic and lovely and supportive. I feel like it's something I might hear my brother say about me.
That's a great observation. I missed that because this was actually a national TV game in Canada. It was on NBA TV Canada, so I got the Magic broadcast. But yeah, that's a lot of fun, and it is fun to get to see guys where there isn't that track record of success, right? And like, as much as I have appreciation for Garland, Mitchell, Mobley, Jared Allen, all these guys that have a track record of success, it's nice to have kind of these guys that are trying to crack the rotation and trying to show something, right? And I also have a lot of appreciation for the track record that Zoom has had with us, which, I mean, the support from Zoom we get is phenomenal, and support for this podcast and the following message obviously comes from Zoom. 500,000 businesses connect using Zoom, a single platform for phone, chat, workspaces, events, apps, and video. Zoom enables real-time collaboration for teams around the globe. Zoom, how the world connects. I wasn't happy about any of that segue, Carter. That was
I
awful.
thought it was fine. Don't beat yourself up. That was fine.
There's too many words in there. That wasn't fun. Let's talk about Sam Merrill, because he's one of the guys that we haven't got to. Didn't have an outstanding shooting game. 2 of 6 from 3, 6 points. But I like the movement, man. Like that guy relocates on the basketball court, and you could tell, especially when it was like Diakite, Mobley, and Merrill out there, that
It
you
was
can
fun
see
watching the G League boys kind of ride together.
Yeah, you can see how the Charge made the playoffs for the first time in a while as well this season. And I thought that their chemistry really came through a lot of times in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fun to see Merrill get out there. I think that his release is crazy. He's a crazy good shooter. You know, I feel like you know, not to play a ball card, but like I feel like if you watch that guy come off a screen and shoot with the space he needs to shoot, like I probably would put him with anyone on the team in a 3-point shooting contest.
Yeah, I agree.
And you know, I didn't. He even got to play a little point guard at the end of the game when Neto and Rubio were sitting before Danny Green finally sat. You know, he had 3 assists, 4 boards. He rebounds better than his size. I noticed that in his G League stats a lot. He is not just a shooter, though obviously he's going to have physical limitations, but I still find it pretty darn interesting that he got the final roster spot for the stretch run. I'd be fascinated to hear kind of what the rationale was from the front office in terms of, you know, why him instead of a outside free agent signing, or even like elevating an Isaiah Mobley or a Mamadi Diakite, especially with the team's kind of lack of size up front. And so clearly, I think there is some belief in Merrill as a floor spacer and as a movement shooter. And it'll be interesting. I don't expect to see him in the postseason. I think something's gone wrong if he's getting run in the postseason. But clearly, I mean, they gave him kind of the Lamar/Dean Wade special contract, and that means that I think that they're at least going to give him every chance to earn that.
Yeah, I definitely feel like Sam Merrill's a long-term play, and I like that even with the off-ball movement, right? He knew what to read with the defense when he was getting those passes, because a lot of times he was really aggressively hunting those shots, but he also made some really nice passes in those situations as well, because and that's what you're really looking for with movement shooters. Like, that's what takes a movement shooter to the next level, is when they're able to manipulate the defense with their off-ball movement, and they know what to look for in a defense, in a scrambling defense, to make the right pass, right? And I think those instincts are really important. And I definitely feel like this is probably a long-term play, and someone that the Cavs obviously recognize that shooting is something that they need, that they need moving forward. I would expect a lot of the offseason moves to kind of be geared towards that as well, to bring in more shooting, whether that's retaining someone like Danny Green and Sam Merrill, and then, you know, using the mid-level exception to go after another shooter, or whatever kind of mechanisms Kobe has at his disposal. Like, I think there's obviously a recognition that is a major skill set that they need. And I just like what he brings to the table. I wish he was like 6'7". I think a little bit more size would be nice, but I can definitely see, right? Like, we talked about it leading up to the trade deadline, even, where we were saying, I don't care if it's a 6'4" movement shooter. Like, just that skill set is so valuable, and the Cavs have valued skill sets over archetypes quite a bit in this team building process.
Justin, I think we're probably going to have to put on a self-imposed moratorium of wishing our favorite players were 2 inches taller. We've done it a lot this year. And
at least this, I'm not like taking a photograph of Sam Merrill at a certain angle and saying, are you sure he's not 6'6"? No,
I'm just saying. I just think it's a pattern that I think we need to, you know, observe in ourselves.
Hey, we went the other route with Isaiah Mobley. We went the other route on Isaiah Mobley. So
no, I also wish he was 2 inches taller. It's not that we're height watching. We're just like we've done this with Okoro a couple of times. Like, but if he was 6'7", though, I don't know what it says about us that we keep doing
these
this.
Microphones turn us into Masai Ujiri. We just want everyone to be 6'9".
So I actually wanted to. I couldn't help myself but tease us about that. Doesn't it seem like, why isn't no one talking about the fact that these teams that like went absolutely bananas loading up on wings all aren't that good? Like, isn't that shouldn't that matter more? That like
Okay,
Brooklyn
I'm
has
to expand a little bit before I comment.
Sure.
Which teams in particular do you have in mind?
Sure, Brooklyn absolutely stocked the brim with wings. They're not. They're certainly not special. Toronto.
Yeah, but I feel like that was just an asset play. But
sure. Toronto stocked with the army of 6'8s. Not that good. The Los Angeles Clippers, just wing city. They're holding every 3-and-D wing on the market. They're only 4 games over 500. The New Orleans Pelicans, they got like 9, 6, 7, 6, 8 wings.
But isn't that more about injuries with the Pels?
Sure. All I'm saying is, I feel like you look at the top teams in the league right now: Milwaukee, Boston, Philly, Cleveland, Denver, Memphis, Sacramento. They all are really relatively balanced rosters with a lot of different disparate sizes and skill sets. I just kind of feel like the get 5 of the same dude era is kind of ending before our very eyes, and no one's really talking about it.
I agree with parts of that. I do think with a lot of these teams, it's similar to the Cavs team building, which is get the talent that's available to you, right? And you try to figure it out from there, because you don't really have control of who's available to you in free agency. I mean, you can make pitches, but at the end of the day, it's whoever's willing to sign, whoever, matches the salary slots that you have. Toronto, I definitely agree with you. And I know we've discussed this before, where I felt like they over-indexed on switchability on defense.
I think the Clippers did too, though.
I think so too, but that's such a weird situation when it comes to injuries and things like that.
I don't think it's as weird as you think it is. Kawhi has played more games than you think he has. Like, this is not another 30-game season. He's played 50 games.
Yeah, but this is still a team that went to the conference finals.
Sure. I get it. I'm just saying, like, I feel like if you chase the archetype over everything, like, the Clippers are dying for players who can just organize them on offense.
That's fair.
They've been dying to bench Ivica Zubac and go all wings. And Zubac just keeps going, well, I make us better because I'm just something different. You can't just switch everything on the other end. And like, and even when Boston had Tatum, Hayward, and Brown, I felt like there was a lot of this like shapelessness on offense when you have all these similar skill set players. Like I kind of talked about how back then about how they were positionless on defense, but they were also kind of positionless on offense. And I think some of these teams are running into that kind of malaise where, like, okay, if we're all kind of the same, then there's no sauce to our offense. There's no it just gets a little grindy, like being able to beat switches is dope, and mismatch hunt is dope, but like in the regular season, it's hard to do that over and over and over and over and over again. Like, you kind of, like, I remember feeling that way when we had LeBron, when teams would switch on us in the regular season. It's like, because now LeBron's just going to have to go post up a guard 40 straight possessions, and he doesn't want to do that because it's a lot of work. I just feel like it's something to monitor at the least, and I'm surprised no one seems to be monitoring it. That these the teams that are the envy of the rest of the league because they have all the wings, and we're like, man, if we just got one of those, we'd be in such a good shape. Well, then why do they stink? Maybe they're messing up by hyper prioritizing this, and obviously the Clippers don't stink, but like, you would think with the names they have, they would be much better than 4 games over 500.
Yeah, I think there's validity to what you're saying. I think in some of these examples, like even looking at Toronto, I think the gamble was our player development is so strong, we can get the archetype and then we can develop the skill sets, right? Like, we can turn Scotty Barnes into that point forward, and he can be that guy that organizes the offense. And
did you see the clip that Will Liu posted?
I did not.
Of their offense. Hold on, I'm going to pull it up and we're going to play it for the live stream. So sorry to our audio listeners. You're just going to have to bear with me here. Okay. And you're just going to have to.
How about while you pull it up?
I have it up already. Okay. Here we go. The caption to this play was, "This is our offense."
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I'm doing dead air here.
Yeah.
Post up to Chua. Do you want me to narrate this, or what are we doing here?
No. We'll cut it out of the audio and make you do some work.
Okay, fair.
Just an absolutely hideous possession that's just formless and shapeless. I think DH in our Discord called it quiet quitting. And like that is what I feel like we're seeing that a lot with these wing heavy teams, because there's just nothing to differentiate your sets.
And
go ahead.
Adding Jakob Poeltl has helped Toronto a lot, right? Like it makes them look more normal, and I think if they had another initiator at the point guard position, like that would really help things out. And I do think like there is validity to what you're saying, and I think sometimes teams looked at the 2016 and 2017 Warriors and they're like, oh, look, like they have all these like 6'6", 6'7" guys around Steph Curry. They can play this positionless basketball. And what really made that work was the variety of skill sets those had. And like every single like need that you would have to run a functioning and great offense was met by someone on that roster. And the evolution of the NBA seems to be that same philosophy, but with size. Like look at Orlando, look at what they're building. Like Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter Jr., and Paolo Banchero. That is a ridiculous amount of size. And even Jabari Smith is starting to put it together. And Wemby's coming in. And all these teams are just loading up on these talented, tall players. And I think that is the direction it's going. You're seeing more and more teams go to these tall ball lineups. And it's not about, oh, we're going to have two bruisers inside that are going to light up teams, right? And on the defensive end and just put a body into guys and you can't get anything going. It's no, we have guys that can protect the rim, which that is still the most valuable shot in the league, getting to the rim and finishing there. We have guys that can protect the rim, but provide the skill set that you normally wouldn't find within that archetype. And I think that's what makes Evan Mobley so special. It's what makes Jaren Allen special. Like he's a good passer for his size as well. And that's a big part of why the Cavs offense has worked. So I do agree that I think some of these teams have over-indexed, but at the same time, I think some of that is, well, like in the case of Brooklyn, it's just best assets available when we're trading our stars. With some of these other teams, it's the best players that are available to them.
This is a classic,
more so than a conscious decision.
This is a classic instance of me weakening my argument by trying to add too many examples. Really, I just wanted to talk about Toronto and the Clippers.
Okay, well, good for you.
Yeah,
I mean, the Toronto one I've already gone off.
I know. I'm just saying. I think I undercut my own argument. But point is, it is fun kind of seeing that the Cavs seem to be ahead of the curve on this. You know, like you've talked about this a lot, about the fact that they have prioritized skills over the archetype. You know, they're not afraid to play Lowry at the 3, and you know, as JB likes to say, size beats skill, but skilled size beats everything. And the Cavs are very, very lucky in that regard.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's interesting, man. Like now that it's very clear the starters are kind of shut down for the Cavs, they're going to have a chance to get healthy.
Play? Do we think they'll play Sunday?
I think if they play, it'll be a cameo. Like that would be my impression. Like with it, you know, being the last home game, it's possible. But at the same time, like I wouldn't blame them for, you know, playing it safe. And apparently this lineup is a lot of fun and can still put on a show. So I wouldn't blame them if they went that route. But even if it is just a brief appearance, or if they do rest, I do think it's interesting that with the play-in, these teams that are going to be getting a lot of rest. Like I almost expect game one across the league to be a little bit uneven for a lot of these teams, because New York's resting Brunson right now. Like both of these teams are going to have 10 plus days off for the most part. And I'm just really interested to see what effect that has on the series, because rest is really nice, but this is going to be a while before the Cavs and before the Knicks play competitive basketball between these games.
Yeah, it is going to be wild. Just man, they do not play game one and for at most 9 days, you know, or at least 9 days. And I do feel like it's the right play. I do think that they're going to be able to get fresh. You know, I think you know, Isaac is obviously the star of the show, but even DG, you know, DG was going through probably his worst 10-game stretch, shooting the basketball. And maybe he needed a second just to rest his body and get right.
Or even just reset his mind after a long season, right?
Absolutely. The only person I don't want to cool down one iota is Donnie, who obviously is on the heater to end all heaters. But otherwise, like, I just feel like, Jarrett was dealing with the groin. Like, I would think after 11 days rest that'll do a body good. And man, I'm getting really excited. I hopped on Big Nick Energy podcast this afternoon, which is a hilarious name.
Great
hilarious name. And it's just so fun talking X's and O's. And Cavs fans, I don't know if y'all realize this, but the Knicks fans are sure they're going to win this series. It's not even like a respectful maybe. It is straight up like they just think they're better than us. And I mean, I try to be pretty even keeled, and you're going to hear us present all sides of the argument. Like, we do have a tremendous amount of time to break down this series since it's been locked in so early. But like, I still think the Cavs absolutely should win this series, especially with Julius Randle's status in question. And it's going to be, I think it's going to get fun and maybe a little bit toxic, but hopefully in a fun way on the socials, because Knicks Twitter is feeling themselves right now, Justin.
Yeah, I did in Knicks Spaces, and I got an earful of that as well. They're really putting a lot of weight into a regular season record, even though a lot of those games didn't feature all the members of the healthy Cavs team. But you know what? We'll see. We've seen that go both ways before. I'm feeling pretty good about this series. I do think it is going to be a competitive series. I do have a lot of respect for the Knicks.
I think it's going to be the highest variance series in the first round. In terms of, the outcomes could be really far ranging, even if, the most likely outcome might be like the thing that happens 30% of the time, like a plurality, not a majority outcome.
But let me ask you this. What game are you most confident in that series?
Game 2.
That's my answer as well. I think game 1 is going to determine the length, and some of that is going to be this kind of long layoff before the series and just seeing how the Cavs respond in game 1. But I think game 1 is the one that goes either way, and then the rest of the series kind of normalizes. So game 2, I agree with that. That is the game that I'm feeling most confident about.
The one thing that's interesting that I think I keep forgetting is how young this Knicks team is. Like, I feel just because they went to the playoffs a couple years ago that they have a little bit more experience, but, Brunson has legit playoff seasoning. Randle
blew my mind. This was pointed out in our Discord, but Josh Hart has never been in the playoffs.
Yep, exactly. I was about to say that. Josh Hart has never been. Quickly has never been. Grimes has never been. Mitchell Robinson didn't play 2 years ago because he was injured. Isaiah Hartenstein is, I think he might have played some for the Clippers, but not a ton. A lot of these dudes have not played. RJ Barrett had had some minutes, I believe, 2 years ago. But this is not like, I think the more I realize how like little seasoning they have, there's just so much available variance here because we just don't know who is going to be ready. Did you listen to Thinking Basketball with Stan Van Gundy this week?
Not yet.
Ben Taylor, Thinking Basketball podcast. Everyone should subscribe to it. It's amazing. He had Stan Van Gundy on just to talk about what game planning in the postseason is like. It was just a deep dive on that individual topic. So amazing stuff. And Van Gundy kind of talked about how like the adjustments in the postseason, they're not about. It's not just about like. It's less about coaching than you think. It's more about players. Everyone has the scout on every player. It's not like you just have to learn players in your position group. You're gonna have time to actually learn everyone's tendencies. And he talked about how Jameer Nelson in his first postseason like went up to him and was like, I can't get to my spots. Like they won't let me go there. And like the fact that he had to figure out counters on the fly and in the subsequent years was really interesting. So like we're gonna figure out who really has enough in their bag to go to their second, third, and fourth choices and go confidently, or are they gonna go into the Patrick Ewing? Did you practice that shot? kind of moves. And it's just going to be, and there's just no tape on anyone. So we have no idea if Evan is going to be ready when every player on the Knicks roster knows what he wants to do. And that means that there might be some games where, like, there could be games where Isaiah Hartenstein outplays Evan Mobley, which is ridiculous from a talent perspective, but like that's all possible within the series, and it's just so exciting.
We saw Tristan outplay Draymond Green in
Absolutely.
Game 6. Like we saw him be one of the best players on the floor, right? Like that is the nature of the playoffs, and a lot of that film is going to be really telling. It's going to be informative for how these guys approach the offseason. And what makes the series even more interesting is there's not a lot of regular season tape to even kind of get anything of what this matchup's going to be. Like Josh Hart's a new addition. 2 of the last matchups against the Knicks, Jared Allen didn't play. If Julius Randle's not in the lineup, or if he's limited, they're going to be going kind of small ball around a center. And what does that look like? Like there just isn't tape of what this series is going to look like. And there's not a lot of experience on either side. And you have to hope that, you know, what we've seen the last 2 seasons of the Cavs starting these seasons strong from a cold stop, that maybe some of that translates to this situation where they have 10 days off, that JB is going to be able to get these guys through basically a mini training camp to prepare for the playoffs, to scout for this team, and that they can come out and put their best foot forward. I think it's a really, really unique test. It makes me a little bit frustrated that we got robbed of this opportunity last year, because I do think you're almost starting a half step back in that regard. But at the same time, this is why you went to go get Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell is what's helped put you in this point. It's what's going to continue to help this team accelerate their development curve, and it's accelerated the expectations as well. But just because outside expectations or some of the media voices get a little ridiculous, which, trust me, whether or not the Cavs win, that's going to happen at some point in a series against the New York Knicks. That's going to happen. It's going to happen locally. It's going to happen nationally. There's going to be some wild takes. But just because there are those wild takes, that doesn't necessarily mean this organization is going to overreact from it. The coaching staff's going to overreact. The players are going to overreact. This is where you want to be. This is a challenge you want to have. And failure isn't permanent. And I feel really good and confident going into this series. But there's going to be missteps along the way.
Yeah, real quick. One thing, you talked about JB. And one thing that I am really glad and I think is going to reap some benefits this postseason, I'm glad that we have someone like Luke Walton on the coaching staff.
Yep.
Someone who's made, several deep playoff runs on the bench, been to several finals as a lead assistant. And, because this coaching staff is also going to, get put through their paces. They're going up against a very experienced playoff coach in Tom Thibodeau, who revels in finding little details to put the screws into the opposition. And they're gonna have to game plan just as well. And having someone who has been as deep into the postseason as Luke Walton has been in his career, that's one of the reasons you add a guy like that to your bench.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that was actually something Thinking Basketball did an episode on coaching as well. And I thought it was fascinating where they were highlighting like how many teams have guys that were full on head coaches on their bench. And you look at the Cavs, like Luke Walton, Sidney Lowe, right? Like there's so much coaching talent, and it's so much more than any one guy. And I think it's going to be fascinating to see how prepared they can get these guys. And there's also that element of no matter how much film prep you do, no matter how much you like mentally prepare, you can't be prepared until you actually get punched in the face. You're never going to be ready for playoff basketball until you experience it. So how these guys rise to the occasion is going to be really interesting. Like how Darius reacts, how Evan reacts.
9 days. Are you kidding me? I'm going to lose my mind.
This is going to be so much fun, man. I don't know if I've ever looked forward to the playoffs more than this. I got nervous energy, but there's so much excitement. I'm such a fan of this core, and I can't wait to see what this ends up looking like. And I know that there's going to be times where it feels bad. I know there's going to be times where it feels really good, but man, we're at the start. This is when the switch has been flipped of real expectations for this team and the run that we're hoping to see over the next few years here. Like this is when it begins on April 15th or April 16th against the New York Knicks. That's awesome.
Bart Scott gif. Can't wait.
Hell yeah. Big thanks to everyone that's tuning in live on YouTube. We really do appreciate you guys. We're going to have a lot of great coverage leading up to the series against the Knicks next week. Can't wait to dive into this series in depth, doing film breakdowns and all that good stuff, and really getting to know our opponent. And hopefully it'll be as fun and informative for you guys as it will be for us. If you want to support us on YouTube, you can like and subscribe, click notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, leave a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of that review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.